Hi, today we're going to work on test taking strategies. Test taking strategies are nothing more than the steps we use to work logically through a question. So let's go through. The strategy I use is called FLAMES. And again, it's just a series of steps. Most people who are good test takers, they already use some version of this. As you get used to using these, you'll start combining and start working on what really works for you. But initially, let's start with these. So the F in flames is find, read, and underline the question. Particularly in STAR and most standardized tests, it is the last part before our answer choices. So let's take a look at a sample question. The L, look at the graphics and answer choices. More, if you need more information, read the part that you skipped. So let's look at the next answer. When we look at this, we notice that we have a graph or a table. And what does the table say? It is talking about generations, and then it's talking about the percentage of the surviving after spraying. And we see that that percentage has changed. So we have just looked at the graphic and analyzed the graphic. And the next one, the A, annotate, circle your keywords, concepts, important parts of the pictures, tables, and graphs. You will notice when we go to the next slide that I had already circled some of the keywords. I have a tendency to group some of my steps together. Uh, so now let's look at the question. So we're looking for in the question, best explains, higher percentage, later generations. So those are our key concepts. So next, M, mark and write what you know. What do you know about certain keywords or concepts? And what do you see in the graph or picture? So ultimately, our question is asking, why are these down here, these later generations, surviving? So next, the E is eliminate wrong answers. To eliminate an answer, you need to be able to explain why the answer was eliminated. I watch too many of you just go through mark, 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 and circle without even really reading the answers you're eliminating. Make sure if you're going to eliminate an answer choice, you can explain why you eliminated it. Sometimes it can be, it just sounds wrong, but that can't be your answer every single time. So let's look at this one or the next step. So earlier generations had old and weak termites. So old and weak termites. Is there anything in the graph that talks about old or weak? Do we know what kind of condition those termites are in? No. So to express, that's all you need to do is mark out or explain, somehow express why you eliminated that answer. So A is not a good choice. Earlier generations had smaller numbers in the population. Do we know how many were in the population? We have no idea what those population numbers are. So that's not our best answer. Later generations were larger. Again, do we see anything in this table that says anything about the size of the termites? And the answer is no. We know the percentage surviving after spraying. So there's nothing here that talks about size. So we have no idea. They may have actually been smaller. So we can't use that answer. And then where the later generations where the offspring to termites that were more resistant to spraying. Well, there's something here about spraying. There's nothing up here about resistance, but that would explain why they survived. So this is probably our best answer. So now we have selected, which is the S. Select and mark the best answer. So let's work through a couple of other questions and see how we do. One question that always comes up is, what if I cannot eliminate any answer choices? And one of the strategies you can do, or you should do, is pick a letter before you even start the test. My default letter is going to be B, as in boy. So anytime I come to a question and I cannot get to the correct answer, I'm going to choose B unless I have eliminated it for some reason. So if I have a 50-50 shot and I have A and B left, then I will pick B. However, if I have A and C left, then just pick one. Some people like to go for whichever one has the longest explanation at that point. So, letter of the day, use it if it has not been eliminated for some reason. If it's been eliminated, then you can use this a second strategy, which is which one has the longer answer choice. Okay, so let's work through this one. Let's start with the find the question. Remember, I have said go to the last sentence before our answer choices. And in this case, the change was most likely caused by. There's no graphics to look at, so now we need to read through and annotate. The change was most likely caused by doesn't give us enough information. So we need to go up and read through the top part, and we need to mark keywords. A single species of squirrel lived in the northwest United States. A river formed through a gorge over time. Over hundreds of years, the single species evolved into two species, each on opposite sides of the river. So it looks like the change that it's talking about is that the single species, evolved into two species on opposite sides of the river. Okay, and then our question, the change was most likely caused. So the question is, what's most likely caused one species to become two species? A higher rate of mutations on one side. Well, to me, I'm not sure how that would change, making sure that we had two different species. So I'm going to put a question mark next to that one. Lower genetic diversity in the initial population. I don't believe that just because I have a lower genetic diversity when I split the two species across the river, that's going to cause two species to develop. So I don't think this sounds right. There's just a part of this that this would not cause one species to divide into two species. The isolation of these two groups, well, and that would cause them to develop differently. So this right now is the one that I'm leaning towards. And then a difference in reproductive rates. Well, if they were the same species, their reproductive rates were probably fairly similar. And since they're both on the same river, just opposite sides, environmental conditions were probably similar. So that's probably just not right. This probably was not different. However, being isolated, again, if we go back to being isolated and the two groups were no longer intermingling, then they're going to develop separately. So this, C, is my best answer. You'd have to wonder why there might be a higher rate of mutations on one side if there was a toxic dump or something, but I think our best answer was C. So we're going to eliminate this one. So let's look at one more question. And this one is a simple, straightforward. The whole question is the question. If Jane has blue eyes, lower B, and both her parents have which of the following? So our question is, Which of the following statements must be true? So we have found our question. There's no graphics to look at. So we need to annotate. We need to go mark what we know. We know that Jane has blue eyes, and that's little b, little b. I know that little b is the recessive trait. So I'm going to mark that. But we know that both of her parents have dark eyes, big B, little b. I know that means they are heterozygous. They have one dominant, one recessive. Um, so for Jane to have blue eyes, she has to have two recessive genes, which means she had to get the recessive gene from her mother and her father. So it says she inherited both genes from her father. That's not right. She can't inherit both, cannot come from father. That is not possible. She has to get one from mom and one from dad. Then it said both from mother. That's not true for the same reason that A was not true. Jane inherited one recessive gene from each parent. That is probably true. We always read all our answer choices. And the reason we always read all of our answer choices is that sometimes you'll realize that maybe you misread a question. You missed a not, you missed an all. And when you see that you're finding three or four correct or three correct answers, then it means you probably misread the answers and you want to look at it again. So we always read all of our answer choice. And kind of like the question we did right before, one could be, but the second one was definitely a better option. So always read all of your answer choices. Jane inherited one dominant form of the gene from each parent. If she had the dominant form, then she would have brown eyes because blue was recessive, right? So brown would have been the dominant. So if she had inherited the dominant, she would not have blue eyes. So that is not our best answer. So C is our best answer.